fight off all stereotypes and prejudices, such as racism, which stand in the way of realizing their positive goals. Should inspire not just young people, but all of us to march forward knowing that we can win, and to ensure that we do not merely commemorate short achievement, because this is the test of ambition and what goals were achieved. When we adopted our constitution 25 years ago, we as South Africans boldly committed ourselves that we would seek to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental rights. We simultaneously committed ourselves to build a South Africa founded on values such as human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of rights and freedoms, as well as the achievement of non-racialism and non-sexism. The defiant spirit of the young generation of 1976, which sought to free themselves from the shackles of apartheid racism and racial discrimination, as well as our collective desire to build a society based on respect for human dignity, achievement of equality, and advancement of rights and freedoms for all, continue to inform our approach as a country in the fight against the continuing manifestations of racism and related intolerances in our world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 25 years later, we know that these goals and objectives are very hard to achieve, but we also know that they are absolutely necessary for our country, for our people, and for the global community. So we cannot rest in our resolve to pursue them. We shall work with our partners, with young people, with civil society, and all people of goodwill throughout the world to realize these objectives. Precisely because democratic, peaceful, and stable nations, free of racism in all its manifestations, will, we believe, produce a peaceful world, free of racism, a world in which all people can realize their aspirations. You will recall, dear colleagues, that the 2001 Durban conference represented not only the cumulative effect of the global struggles against all forms of racism and the efforts to prohibit racism and racist practices, it also underscored the prevailing global mood of optimism prevailing at the time of that conference. A feeling in that fresh millennium year that we could and would do better. In 2001, the world was still celebrating the triumph of the human spirit over the racism and racial discrimination of apartheid. After all, it was just 6 years since we had gained our freedom. The victory of the anti-apartheid struggle, a struggle that was supported by the entire community of nations, had demonstrated to us all what could be achieved against the scourge of racism if and when the family of nations was united in its determination to say no to racism. we need a similar unity and determination to achieve the self-determination of the people of Palestine and that of the people of Western Sahara. In Durban, many believed, correctly so, that there was a need to draw a solid line in the sand between civility and barbarism. That optimism and belief in the inherent potential of humanity to triumph over evil was echoed in the Mandela-Robinson Pledge, which was one of the important key messages that delegates at the Durban conference embraced. In that pledge, late President Nelson Mandela and Madame Mary Robinson, former High Commissioner for Human Rights, challenged delegates when they said, as a new century begins, we believe each society needs to ask itself certain questions. Is it sufficiently inclusive? Is it non-discriminatory? Are its norms of behavior based on the principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? They also, in the pledge, expressed the strong desire that over the coming year, we pledge ourselves to seek that conversion of mind and heart. What we envisage, they said, for every man and woman and child is a life where the exercise of individual gifts and personal rights is affirmed by the dynamic solidarity of our membership of one human family. That World Conference Against Racism adopted a wide-ranging political declaration and an extensive program of action whose intention was to nudge states and non-state actors to not only note the decisions, but to join the practical efforts to combat racism and related intolerance. In that context, the conference affirmed the important role that young people, the future generation, had to play in realizing the goals and objectives of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. The pledge urged states to encourage the full and active participation of, as well as involve more closely, youth in the elaboration, planning, and implementation of activities to fight racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, and called upon states in partnership with non-governmental organizations and other sectors of society to facilitate both national and international youth dialogue on racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance through the World Youth Forum of the United Nations system and through the use of new technologies, exchanges, and other means. The call 20 years ago by Nelson Mandela and Mary Robinson for the conversion of mind and heart to achieve inclusive and non-racist society was forward-looking. In that regard, young people became the critical section of society in our quest to rebuild new communities that will embrace and live by the spirit, norms, values, and principles contained in the Mandela-Robinson Pledge and the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. The event we mark today forces us to self-examine and reflect on the progress or lack thereof in relation to what we have done to create the kind of conditions for young people in our country and in the global community, and to assess whether future generations will enjoy the society envisaged by Nelson Mandela and Mary Robinson. In the context of the current COVID-19 pandemic, we know that young people are some of the hardest hit members of our societies. We know that many young people have lost jobs, as many of them occupy the less secure casual jobs in our societies. Some have become orphaned, losing parents, guardians, family breadwinners, caregivers, mentors, and have suffered awfully psychologically due to this pandemic. The future for many of them appears bleak, but we cannot lose hope. Young people can and must be agents of change and should be supported in this regard. Young people can and must be in the forefront in the fight against racism, poverty, ignorance, marginalization, exclusion, and disease. As governments, we should create conditions that will allow young people to realize their unique gift, to utilize their potential, to harness their energies, to release their creativity, to dream the seemingly impossible, and to succeed big. We, as governments, partnering with civil society, should create these conditions. I believe, dear participants, as members of the world community, we need to strongly recommit ourselves to the goals and objectives that were inscribed by all and accepted in the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. A world free of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance is hard to imagine, but is necessary to pursue. We must all join hands to achieve that world. We should not allow ourselves to be distracted by petty differences, by accusations, by arguments, and by insignificant battles that cause us to lose this critical war against racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. We need to be proactive, we need to be pragmatic, we need to be activists in pursuit of these goals. I sincerely look forward to a united voice in New York when the General Assembly meets and beyond that date. I look forward to a time when we, as citizens of the world, will once again add conviction in our declaration of war on racism and add conviction to our embrace of our common human heritage. Let us all agree that we will join hands in hashtag fight racism and create a better world. I thank you, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Minister. We must indeed confront the intolerable prejudices. We must continue to strive for a society based on human dignity. We cannot rest in our resolve to achieve all this. And indeed, Minister, young people can and must be at the forefront of the fight against racism. They are the future of this world. Thank you so much once again, Minister. Colleagues, at this point, I would like to request our technical people, Gordon, please be ready. We are now going to listen to a pre-recorded message from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Ms. Michelle Bachelet. For those who may not be aware, Ms. Michelle Bachelet is the former president of Chile. In fact, she's been the president on 2 occasions for Chile. First time in 2006 until 2010, then later 2014 to 2019 to 2018. In 2018, in September, she was then appointed to her current position of being the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Please, our technical people, let us now put in the pre-recorded message by former President Bachelet, as she is not able to be with us physically today, but she will be with us, of course, via the recorded message. Gordon and the technical team, are you ready? Apologies, colleagues. Apologies, colleagues. We seem to be having trouble with sound from the video. I've privately communicated to the technical team, led by the Gordon Liswesi, to please attend to the sound challenges there, because according to our program there are 2 of such videos. The second video is by Me Tendai Achume, who is the United Nations Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. I would suggest at this point, our technical team, please, if we are unable to sort out the initial challenges on the sound of the initial recording, perhaps let us move into Oh, okay, I see they're trying to replay Miss Bashley. Let's try to hear. Colleagues, apologies on behalf of our technical team for these apparent glitches. I think at this point, in the interest of progress, let us move into the next speaker. At this point, it will be Ms. Fatima Chauhan, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, to deliver her remarks. At this stage, I suppose we will go back to the recorded videos only once we have ascertained that they will be audible once played. But at this point, let us give Ms. Chauhan a hearing, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission. Ms. Chauhan, the floor is yours. Ms. Chauhan. Colleagues, if Ms. Chauhan also, for whatever the reason, I believe she is available, but it could be the technical challenges. The next speaker is Ms. Abigail Nogo, who is the head of the regional office of the OHCHR in Southern Africa. She is the next speaker scheduled in a program. That is, if Ms. Chauhan is still unable to come through, I would like Ms. Abigail Nogo to take to the podium. At this point, we will obviously rearrange the sequence in our program. Ms. Nogo, if you are available, please. The floor is yours at this point.
Thank you, Program Director. And I would also be happy to read the statement on behalf of the High Commissioner if the technical glitches continue.